today from the East Coast of the U.S. have Michael Wiedecker from the Maryland Transit Administration and Ron Meyer, who was a consultant with him, and they brought to life the Kirkpatrick model and want to share a few things that they did. Some keys to the success that we're going to hear about. So Michael and Ron, glad you guys are with us.
Yeah, good morning.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning.
Yeah, Michael, why don't you give us a little handle on what this program was and why you selected it?
Okay. On the MTA's light rail system, there's a train yard, and all the switches were recently changed out to a new type of switch. And shortly after that, we had a very high rate of train operators trailing these switches and damaging these switches, and sometimes derailing the train, which caused major operational issues and maintenance costs increased. So that was our challenge.
Yeah, and how was it, were you commissioned to do this, or was this one that you kind of selected on your own to do 4 levels with?
I selected this on my own to do it. I'm the Director of Operations Training, so I'm responsible for the training of 2,800 employees, including those at the light rail system. And I was previously the Deputy Director of light rail, so I was very familiar with the property and very familiar with the problem that was going on. So once I learned about the Kirkpatrick model, I said this is a perfect opportunity to implement this model and to show how we'll meet the business goals of MTA.
And I think you mentioned earlier you were inspired by reading Training on Trial, huh?
Yes, that book made so much sense to me, and I read it in like 4 days, and that was probably a year ago I read that, and we're moving forward with implementing the whole Kirkpatrick model here at the Maryland Transit Administration.
Well, good, and you're right. It's straightforward, common sense, and that's what a lot of our model is. And I'm glad you realized that. Now, as I look at the slides that you guys put together when you presented in the ASTD chapter, you realized that this was not going to happen through training alone. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, because once we started realizing the operators are trailing switches, the first thing that every agency does, and what our agency did, was say, well, what kind of training did they have? So we went back and looked at their training, and they passed all the courses. They passed the test. So we knew it really wasn't a classroom event that was causing the problem. It was what happens after the training, when they get back to the job. That's where we really saw the impact when we implemented level 3 to monitor their behavior and encourage, reward, and like have on-the-job training after the classroom training. And actually I have a new thing I have here at MTA, Jim. It's that at MTA we no longer view training as an event, but a process. And that continues throughout the person's career.
Well, let me ask you, what were the challenges that you faced when you tried to get the cooperation of others to help you with this whole package approach?
Okay. Actually, there was no the managers at the light rail division, they understood what I was trying to do, and they were on board right away because it was affecting their daily business. So when I presented this model and presented what we wanted to do, the buy-in was very easy because they saw the benefit of it and how we can build this chain of evidence to meet their business needs.
I would suspect that part of that was due to the relationship you already had with them and the trust they had in you.
Yes. Yeah, because I used to actually teach people how to repair the light rail vehicles. So I knew the light rail vehicles inside and out. I was, let's say, deputy director there, so I knew the whole system as it worked. So when I came to them and said, hey, I got this model I want to implement, they trusted me and they went with it, and the results were fantastic.
Well, you know, that's a quick tip right there, isn't it? Within a quick tip here, because if you had been a stranger or hadn't built a rapport with them and credibility, it would have been more difficult if you would have just marched in and said, hey, I got a new way of doing things for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. But even when I explained it to them, that made sense to them. I mean, so they understood it.
Well, I'm glad you explained it in a way that made sense to them rather than in training language kind of thing.
Yeah, it's more like I put on my business hat. You know, I wanted to be their business partner, and I wanted them to be my training partner in solving this issue.
Excellent. Tell the rest of us here a bit about what kind of package you put together and how it was executed.
Okay. We did a couple of things. One thing we did was we created posters that showed the track switches in different configurations. And we put those in the hallways and the stairwells wherever the operators would walk past, they would see that as a reminder. That was one. We developed a written test that had 25 questions on it, and we had 4 different versions of that test created. And we had that test given and proctored. And then we evaluated the test scores, and we saw where some weaknesses were. And then we retrained those people who got less than 88%. And then after their training, then we went into the field. We actually had people walk through the yard with the train operator as he was moving the train out of the yard to confirm proper switch alignment. And if a switch wasn't aligned correctly, we would ask the operator what they were thinking. So that was that follow-up we did out in the field. So that was basically our process.
Let me ask you, how did that go when you were out in the field and giving people the feedback and stuff?
It went well. There was a few operators at first that if we weren't there, they would have trailed the switch. So even though they had the training, even though they passed the test, something was going on when they got back out in the field where they just weren't getting the full picture. So having people out there monitoring it, I think that the level 3 is really what pushed us over the edge and make us successful.
Well, you know, that's one thing that we try and stress to people is that the level 3 really is the pivot point, the tipping point, and the mere fact that you were out there and were observing and cared enough to make sure these guys did it right increased the likelihood that they actually did follow what they were supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah, remember, we're a 24/7 operation, so I had to get the assistance of the light rail division on all 3 shifts. And so we had to have management people sit out in the yard and monitor these train movements. So, but that buy-in was all there. They understood what I was trying to do, and they stepped up to the plate and did it.
How did they know exactly what they were to do when they were out there observing their people?
Okay. The people that we had observing the train operators, they know how switch alignment should be. They were maintenance supervisors who worked on the switches. They were maintenance supervisors who operated equipment on the tracks, who knew how the switches should be set. So they had the knowledge of proper switch alignment and setting of routes. So it was just basically taking that knowledge and overseeing the operator's performance in the yard.
Well, Michael, so far it sounds like you put together a great package. You implemented it successfully, and now we're all interested in the epilogue here. What kind of results did you get?
Jim, before you get to the epilogue, I want to throw in a cultural necessity. One of the items that really made a difference, and it was inculcated in the classroom, was the element of pride.
Oh, yes.
Pride in not trailing a switch. It became kind of the touchstone. You know, that's one thing you don't want to do if you're an operator, and it looks really bad for somebody to do that. So the pride element was key.
Yeah. There were some operators they said, I never trail a switch and I never will because I do my job well. And so when I spread out through the division, the other operators were like, well, I don't want to trail switch either. So.
You know what? That is really how culture changes, through pride and through ownership rather than just through some HR initiative or some change management process. So that's really good, and hope it continues, and know that you'll support that. All right, Michael, give us the end of the story here. What kind of results did you guys see?
All right. Well, when we first did this, we had approximately 40 trailed switches, which is an extreme amount. 40 trailed switches we had in like a 4-month period. It was a lot. Sometimes it'd have 2 or 3 a day. But after this initiative, the Kirkpatrick model, and doing the 3 levels, the trailed switches went from 40 down to 2 after the initial round of training. And then once we retrained those folks, then it went to 0. We have not had a trailed switch in the last, I'd say, 4 or 5 months.
And remind us again, what's the consequences of a trailed switch?
When the switch is trailed, first of all, the switch itself is damaged, which can take anywhere from 2 to 3 hours to repair, and we have to put in new components, so the maintenance cost is very high. The biggest impact, though, is operationally. So the one switch they seem to trail the most was where all the track switches merged into one track, and then it went to the mainline track. So when that one switch was trailed, we couldn't get trains into the yard or out of the yard to make revenue service. It was operationally, it was terrible, the impact.
Well, Congratulations, going from 40 to 2 and then to 0. That is remarkable. And what a story you have to tell. And you know what? We will certainly look for other opportunities to showcase what you're doing. You guys are bright lights, and that's what we rely on to kind of spread the word and encourage others that this doesn't have to be so hard. This isn't academic. This isn't school anymore. This is real life, and you guys sure did a nice job of implementing it.
Yeah, it works.
All right. Well, we so appreciate it, Michael and Ron, and we will keep in touch and anxious to hear about future successes. I know you've got other things on the horizon.
Yes, we do. Thank you for your time, Jim.
Terrific. You're very welcome.
Thank you for joining us for this Kirkpatrick Quick Tip. For more information, visit our website at kirkpatrickpartners.com. Register with us to receive the weekly Quick Tip delivered right to your inbox and access to all of our online resources library with over 60 items.